So who is Melanie Ann Layer, the coach and mentor who leads the $100 million Alpha Femme brand? And why do so many people either love or dislike her? Today, I'm going to introduce you to this magnetic powerhouse of the online coaching industry, and we're going to analyze one of her free live masterclasses for cult marketing skills and how it has led to her extraordinary coaching business growth. You're listening to Hexotica, the podcast for unconventional women and gender-diverse creatives ready to make money their own damn way. I'm Christine Rice, marketing mentor, and this is episode 45. There's something deeply mesmerizing about watching a live video from a high-performing coaching brand leader like Melanie Ann Layer. Because on the surface, it feels casual. It feels spontaneous. It looks like just someone talking to their audience, answering comments, welcoming people, sharing stories, and maybe, pitching an offer at the end, right? That's what we expect from masterclasses. But underneath that surface, there are layers of structure happening in real time. Attention is being shaped, identity is being assigned, and belonging is being engineered. And a sales funnel is unfolding inside what may just look like just a conversation, right? So in this episode, I want to walk you through a breakdown of a public live video from Melanie Ann Layer, not as a critique of her personally, but as a case study in what I'm going to call cult marketing skills in the coaching industry. And just to be clear on the framing here, okay, we're not talking about literal or harmful cult marketing, okay? This is not QAnon cult stuff. This is cult marketing in the branding sense, just like what Disney or Sony or Harley Davidson would use to get the loyalty for their brands. Okay, these are common cult marketing skills, and we are seeing them masterfully used in this Melanie Ann Layer video. So I'm using it as a marketing lens to explore how strong community-driven brands create that intense loyalty, that intense active engagement, and that identity alignment inside their audiences, like Melanie Ann Layer has done with the Alpha Femme brand. Because whether you love this style of marketing or you think it's manipulative or scammy, it is worth understanding to see how it works. So welcome back to the Hexotica podcast. If you have been here before, I am so glad that you are back. This is the podcast for unconventional creatives to start and grow their online businesses. And if you are new here, welcome. You may have heard of Melanie Ann Layer, or maybe you're curious to know about her. Now, I want to make a little caveat here that we are not going to tear down this amazing woman, all right? Because I don't believe in any kind of bad mouthing or gossip of an online figure, unless, they've been convicted of something. There are a lot of people on Reddit who will bitch and moan about having been scammed or that she's a scammer, or there's a lot of men who don't understand the language that Melanie Ann Layer uses. In a nutshell, she's an energetics teacher. And what we're talking about with energy here is leading business through emotion rather than through self-discipline, pushing kind of the bro marketing way, right? Melanie Ann Layer teaches to show up with a certain energy that will attract people with that certain energy. And an example of what I mean here on a practical level is, for example, the energy of my voice, how my voice is carrying, how I am speaking, and what my voice is saying when I speak to you. Those are the kind of things that she teaches, right? But a lot of people will misunderstand that she is teaching energetics, and they think that they're going to learn some sales funnel skills and conversion metrics and whatnot. There is plenty of other information of the nuts and tools on how to do sales funnels and all of that out there on the internet, right? But what Melanie Ann Layer teaches is something quite unique. She inspires people. She gives them a belief. She helps them to raise their frequency and vibration level, whatever you want to call it, to feel good and have the mindset to run an online business. I talked about energetics in the previous podcast in number 44. So go back and listen to that if you want to hear more about what I mean about energetics and how to create it and why it is so important when you're running an online business, especially if you want it to be successful. But in this video, what I'm going to be talking about is how she manages her messaging to have such influence over her large audience. So the first time that I was introduced to Melanie Ann Layer was through my close friend who is a massive fan of hers. And this friend was saying, there's this lady she's made over $100 million and she can sell things. She can sell out on offers without any details about what the offer is. She calls them invisible offers. And I was absolutely amazed. How the hell does someone get to this level? Right? And my friend had kind of been deconstructing her business and looking at how she had started way back in 2017 with doing everyday live Facebook videos. Back when doing live videos on Facebook gave you enormous reach, right? She did it for a year. Every single day she showed up on a live video and she did a live speaking to her audience, right? And she's an amazing speaker and she had really good client testimonials. She helped people in a way that was just quite unique at the time. It was right when coaching was starting to get a bit more popular, right? And so she's grown Alpha Femme since then. And it has become such an enormous powerhouse of a business that it has, like any great business, like the Life Coach School, created a lot of haters. And these haters they don't resonate with her language. They don't understand that she's teaching energetics because they don't understand what energetics are, or they are very skeptical that she is aware of what she's doing when she uses these cult marketing branding skills, right? I think I have a few opinions about it, but I'm going to wait until the end of the podcast to share my personal opinions or beliefs, because this is not a critique of Melanie Ann Layer herself. It's not a critique of her being a cult. There's no accusations. I want to look factually at what she does from a marketing lens. All right. So because this video is quite long, I have broken it down into 3 different sections, which pretty much only cover the first 10 or 15 minutes of the actual video. It is quite long. I can't cover the whole thing in this episode. So the first section we're going to look at is world building and early identity binding. The second section breakdown is offer framing, engagement loops, and magic construction. The third section breakdown is looking at her origin story, authority building, and guru halo construction. Now, if you'd like to go even deeper with this and get the full transcript that I've been working on and analyzing for the last year or so, then I've put together a free download version of that and the full analysis that you can geek out on in full detail, and you can grab that in the show notes of this episode. All right, so let's get started. All right, so section 1 is the creation of a world and early identity binding. Okay, so this is the transcript that I pulled from the live video. And if you're watching the video format of this episode, then you're going to see that I have highlighted things in different colors. So I'm going to read through the transcript without reading my personal notes, which are in the purple highlights. The green highlighted areas are anything that are sales related or commands or requests that she's making. I wanted to highlight those specifically. And then the yellow area that I've highlighted here are what I found interesting. So first I'll read the clip and then I will talk about my analysis. Okay, so she starts off the live going, "Hello, Facebook Live, refreshing on my phone. How are you today? Melanie Ann Layer coming to you here live on my personal page. If this is the first time that you have ever caught me live in your whole entire life, please let me know that you are a first-time viewer. I would love to welcome you to my Facebook Live world. If you tend to watch me quite a bit, then I hope that you would say hi because we're friends and stuff. And if you happen to be watching this on the replay, then you can hashtag Alpha Femme and I'll see that you were here on the replay. I am in such an incredible mood. Today has actually been one of those days that's just exquisite and magical in all the ways. I've got stories for you, I've got news for you, and I've got so many things that I want to share. And so I first want to start by kicking off this live stream and telling you that there is a brand new masterclass that is launching in the Alpha Femme world, and it's happening fast. We're opening the group on 11/11. There's a whole vortex here. And if you want the link to that masterclass and you want to register to that free masterclass, make sure you comment in the comment section. Please give me the link. And then my team can share it with you because this is going to be big. I've got so many things I want to tell you, so many things I want to share. I'll remind you throughout the live stream because I know people come in at different times, but I wanted to just put it in there, right there in the beginning. Okay, so that's section 1. Now let's look and analyze this first section and break it down. So what I found interesting about this opening is that it's not what she's saying on the surface, right? It's what she's building underneath it. So she begins with what may seem like a simple greeting, right? It's casual, welcome, welcome. It's all that kind of Facebook stuff that you expect from a live, right? But structurally, what she's doing is underneath is a lot more intentional. She's establishing a contained social world. So she's not just saying, hi, everyone, and moving on to, talking about what she wants to talk about, right? She says things like, welcome to my Facebook Live world. And then she immediately starts segmenting the audience. Now, anyone who's listened to my podcast knows that I do this, and this is where I've learned it. She says, first time here, you're welcomed in. If you're a regular viewer, you're already positioned as a friend. Watching on the replay, you're still included, but I've given a coded identifier to signal participation. Let me know that you're a first-time viewer, she says. So this is doing 3 things at once. The first thing it's doing is it is creating a micro tribe structure. So this is not just an audience she's talking to. It's not just viewers, right? It's a world with entry points, rules of recognition, and belonging markers. That phrase that she uses, my Facebook Live world, is doing more work than it appears to do, right? It's reframing the experience as something you enter, not just watch. And anyone who's listened to my Hexotica world knows that this is something that I use. I want my beginning of my podcast to sound like an invocation, right? Welcome to my world. A good copywriter who started this and who's kind of famous for creating worlds is Ben Settle. And anyone who's studied copywriting might be familiar with how Ben Settle was kind of famous for creating whole worlds of characters, and he talked a lot about world building. The second thing that she's doing in this introduction is that she is using identity layering. You're not just watching a Facebook Live video. You are either a new entrant, you're a returning insider, or you are a replay participant who still counts. So that seems like a small detail, right? But psychologically, it matters because it's preventing anonymity. Everyone gets a category. And once people are categorized, they are easier to retain inside a narrative system, right? She doesn't just lump everyone together and make you feel like, you're just part of the crowd, right? You are either this or this or this. And in that way, it's kind of conveying something special to you, right? You're feeling a bit special, like, ooh, what's this world here? There's the people who've been here before. There's the people who are new. It's like giving everyone kind of something to look around and see other people are on. And it's like this whole kind of thing, right? All right. Now, the third thing that she is doing, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think, from a marketing lens, is that she is normalizing relational framing early on. When she says things like, we're friends and stuff, what she's doing is soft intimacy work, right? But what that does is it's collapsing the distance between her as the creator and her audience through familiarity rather than through authority, right? So she's not saying, you've got to listen to me because I've got this interesting stuff to say, or you want to hear this, you don't want to miss out on this. She's saying, we're friends and stuff. That's the reason why you want to listen, because she's a friend, right? Now, we can be honest about what's happening here without overreaching. This is a classic parasocial acceleration technique. The relationship between her and you as a viewer is being fast-tracked from viewer to familiar person in my world within the first minute. And then she immediately shifts gears. Right after establishing belonging and identity, she introduces anticipation. I've got stories for you. I've got news for you. I've got so many things I want to share. This is a momentum bridge. It creates a narrative pressure. It's something is coming, something valuable, something that you'll want to stay for. In psychology, this is called a Zeigarnik effect, which is an open loop. And as humans, we always want to close an open loop. And you can see this used in storytelling on TV shows like The White Lotus, for example. Every White Lotus episode will open with a murder, right? So from the very beginning, we're like, who did the murder? And we're watching the TV showing, who is it going to be? Is it going to be this person? Is it going to be that person? That is the Zeigarnik effect in action. We want to find who did it because we've got this open loop in our head that we have to close. So when she says that she's got stories and news and all this exciting stuff, it makes you go, ooh, I wonder what she's going to say. You know, what's going to happen? All right. And then almost seamlessly after this, she then transitions into the offer, the masterclass announcement. Now, the sequencing is very clever here if you pay attention, right? It's belonging first, emotional uplift second, scarcity and opportunity third. So she even reinforces the urgency with, quote, it's happening fast, unquote, and the specific date drop, which anchors it in the time and increases perceived immediacy. And interestingly, the time that she gives here is 11:11. She is imbuing this kind of spiritual, almost like evocation, like something has been come down from God and she is conveying it to you. We're coming in at 11:11, right? Now, after this comes the key conversion mechanic, the engagement trigger. Comment in the section, please give me the link. This is important because it does two things. It increases the platform engagement and it also creates a micro commitment. You don't just receive the access, right? You're asking for it publicly. That small act increases psychological investment. So in under a few minutes, the structure of this just very basic welcome to her Facebook Live is doing this. You are welcomed into her world. You are assigned an identity. You are emotionally warmed up. You are promised value. You are given a reason to act. All before the main content even begins. So from a pure marketing mechanics perspective, this is not accidental sequencing. It's a tightly structured onboarding funnel disguised as casual live conversation. And this is the core theme that I want to highlight as we go deeper into the analysis. The most effective coaching brands don't just start with content. They start with containment. This is a core cult marketing skill. They build the room before they deliver the message. All right, the next section of the intro is a breakdown of offer framing, engagement loops, and magic construction. All right, so if we look at the next section, we're still in the introduction. She'll then go on to say, let me see who is on. Oh, I'm hearing myself double. I'll put this down because that's annoying. I can't see the comments on the screen, but I can see them here. Cam, I'm so happy you're here. Lynn is here. Brianna, oh my gosh, on your trip to Argentina. Lynn, this is awesome. Melina, hello. So good to see you. Cynthia, hello. Tandy, Ali Reeves. Oh my gosh, what a treat. So good to see you. And she's doing more and more introductions, right? Let's just skip ahead a little bit. So then she says, I will say also, I love when people share my live streams because while I'm live, it's like such a treat. Sometimes brand new people who don't know me yet end up stumbling across me. If you do end up sharing the live stream while I am live, if you feel like someone needs to hear this or someone could benefit from a free masterclass with me, you share it. Just make sure you tag me in the comment section and then my team can see that you shared and everyone will go in a draw and I will be drawing an Alpha Femme crystal water bottle. And I'll tell you the stories about this in a second because it's actually a really good story. But the way these water bottles work is basically you fill them with your water and all the properties of the healing crystal that's inside infuses the water. And this is a clear quartz. This is the one I'm going to draw. It's a master healer crystal and it just infuses the water with all the healing properties of the crystals. It's my favorite thing. I think all of the Alpha Femme swag that I have is this crystal water bottle. So if you tag or if you do share, let me know in the comment section so my team can get you in the draw. Okay, let's get started. I have stories, so I first want to preface this. As I said before, there is a brand new masterclass coming in the Alpha Femme world. It's going to open quickly. It's going to happen. Class, just say, give me the link in the comment section. My team will give it to you while we're live. But I want to tell you some stories. All right, so let's analyze this section now. So this next part is where the tone shifts a little bit. So we move from warm relational bonding into something a little bit more structured. We do engagement mechanics, offer reinforcement, and what I describe as attention anchoring through micro interactions. But it doesn't just feel like a hard pivot here because it's still wrapped in this conversational kind of tone, right? We're reading names, we're welcoming people, we're reacting to the comments, and we're maintaining a sense of real-time social flow, right? And this is important because what looks like just saying hi to people in the chat is actually doing important retention work. So every name that she drops, Kim, Lynn, Brianna, Cynthia, it's a micro validation loop. It's signaling you are being seen in the space, not as a mass audience member. Like you're not just someone in the audience, right? You're an individual inside a live system. I see you. And this increases stickiness, increases people sticking around longer because they feel personally seen and acknowledged, even if it's indirectly, all right? So we get a subtle but significant behavioral prompt then, which is the sharing. So she frames the sharing of the live stream not as a promotion for me, but as helping others access something that they might need. So that reframes the distribution as altruism rather than as marketing for her. So you're not just promoting for her, you're doing it for someone else because you're, altruistic and you're thinking about someone else who might need this, right? And that matters psychologically because what it's doing is it's removing the friction that people might feel from what is essentially an organic amplification behavior. People often don't just want to do something for you when you ask them, but they will be compelled to do something when you say, oh, it's for someone else's benefit, right? Don't do it for me, do it for someone else. And then she adds on top of this a layer that I find so interesting because this is one of my favorite things to talk about on the Hexotica podcast and in my programs is gamification. So the draw for the Alpha Femme crystal water bottle is introduced as a reward mechanic for the audience behavior, right? So now we're no longer just watching live, right? We're participating in a system where actions like sharing, tagging, and commenting can have visible outcomes, entry into the crystal water bottle draw. This is a classic engagement reinforcement design. So it's turning passive viewers into active participants through low effort actions paired with immediate perceived reward eligibility. And then we get a moment that is especially important from a marketing psychology lens, which is the product mystique framing. I was about to say farming there, but I don't want to say farming. Mystique framing. The crystal water bottle is not just merchandise, right? It is described as a kind of energetic object. Clear quartz, master, healer, infused properties, emotional attachment language, right? Whether or not a viewer believes in that framing, it's not even important, right? That's secondary. The key point here is that the product is not positioned as merchandise. It is positioned as meaningful artifact. That distinction matters because merchandise just sells products, right? It just helps the creator. But meaningful systems sell identity. And this is where we start to see the overlap between community branding and what analysts would call movement style cult marketing. This is where objects inside the ecosystem carry symbolic weight beyond their functional use. Now, layered on top of all of this, she's reintroducing the masterclass repeatedly, right? And this is where the Zeigarnik effect becomes to become even more visible. She doesn't just announce the offer once and move on. She keeps reopening it, reframing it, and delaying the full narrative resolution, right? She's building up that excitement. So we hear, it's coming soon. It opens on a specific date, 11/11. It has portal language attached to it. You can get the link by commenting. She'll tell stories in a second before continuing. This creates a constant loop of partial resolution. The audience is repeatedly reminded that something important is coming, but they are not yet fully inside it. That tension is powerful because unfinished narratives hold attention better than completed ones. And in live environments, that translates directly into watch time, engagement, and comment activity. Now, we also need to talk about the magic framing that's happening here, right? And magic language. Words like portal, vortex, and repeated emphasis on timing, like 11/11, the angel numbers, are doing symbolic elevation work. They transform a standard digital event, like an online masterclass, into something that feels ritually significant. And this is not unusual in coaching ecosystems, but it is strategically important because once an offer is positioned as ritually meaningful, the decision to participate is no longer purely rational. It becomes identity-aligned participation in something larger. So in this section, we see three systems running simultaneously here. First, engagement engineering through live interaction and gamified sharing. Second, emotional reinforcement through recognition and inclusion. Third, narrative tension building through repeated teaser loops and incomplete information cycles. And importantly, none of these elements exist in isolation. They are layered on top of each other in real time, which is what makes live formats so powerful from a marketing perspective, okay? The viewer isn't just consuming information that they feel like it. They feel like they're just watching this live, right? But in reality, they are being kept inside a continuously unfolding loop of attention, anticipation, and belonging. Attention, anticipation, and belonging. This is why some of her videos can be so mesmerizing. People that master this are really good at holding attention and keeping retention going. All right, so moving on to section 3 of the breakdown, which is the origin story, authority building, and guru halo construction. Now, this section is just a little bit long, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to skip from the beginning of her origin story to when she finishes, just to kind of give you an idea of how it goes, right? So she starts off, quote, "So I just want to give you an idea a little bit first. Some of you are new to my world, don't know really who I am. Some of you have been with me for a long time. So either way, just bear with me because I'm in the mood to tell the story. So whether you've heard it 100 times or whether this is your first time, I really feel like this is important. It's really relevant to the day that I had. So today, somehow everything was magical. Today, I manifested nonstop to the most wonderful things, the most wonderful people, the most wonderful energy in people, helpful people, gifts. Like I just manifested the kind of day where you just feel in every discussion that you're having and with every person that you meet that it's a gift to be alive. Like that's how it felt today for me. And it's so interesting because it is a very contrasting experience to the days I've had yesterday and the day before, where there was a lot of duality and I was holding those like a warrior. Today was completely different from that. Today was absolutely magnificent. And it's so interesting because I had a full circle moment today. And just to give you an idea of who I am, if this is the first time you've ever connected with me, if you don't really know who I am, like I have been a coach and a mentor since 2013. But when I first started my journey, I called myself the invisible coach. And I did this because I really wanted people to serve I really wanted to serve people who knew for sure I was the right person. Like I didn't know how to market what I was doing whatsoever. I was just taking people's words for it when they were like, this just changed my life. I was like, cool, tell a friend. And so I only would work with people who knew someone who'd had a life-changing session with me. I didn't have any marketing or advertising except for word of mouth, but I've been doing this since 2013. So I've been doing this for a while. And as I've built my journey and as I've become a coach, like a lot of this came from kind of a life-changing way of looking at life. And I went from being at a place in my life where everything was falling apart. I had been in a relationship for multiple years, like 6 or 7 years, and the whole thing fell apart. So then she goes into the story of how everything in her life fell apart. She was living in her Honda Civic. Her whole life was a mess. And then she starts to come together, right? So I want to skip past a lot of this to go to the end where she talks about becoming a coach again. So she says, and I'm sitting in the front seat of this car, and all of a sudden I have these like epiphanies and downloads and journaling, and life is finding all this meaning. And I'm basically mentoring people at this point. And my angle is that no matter how hard it is, I can help you find the silver lining, which I feel entirely qualified for. Because if I'm sitting in the front seat of a Honda Civic and I'm finding more joy and more satisfaction in my life than I have, then I can help anyone see the silver lining. Like I'm very clear that I'm qualified for this. And so this is the first time in my life I ever experienced having a purpose, not just having a job, not just making money, not just wondering how I'm going to make things work for me, something that was bigger than me, something that really felt like this could touch people and this could help people, like a purpose. And it was such an interesting thing because at first, the thing that was hard for me is like, can you charge for your purpose? Because I could totally help these people for free. No question. I had an intuition very early on that especially because people were asking me now how much it costs that giving it to them probably wouldn't work very well. Because most of us feel uncomfortable receiving things if we don't feel we have earned them or deserve them in any way. And so people choosing to offer themselves, this was their way of feeling like they would deserve any transformation or miracle that would come from it. And so I kind of surrendered to that process. I never thought I would end up building what I built now. This felt like a bridge for me at the time, at the moment at the time. It was like I am holding the silver lining in my own life. And so I am extremely qualified to help people hold the silver lining. I didn't know I would end up wanting to do this full time. I never knew that I would end up falling in love with it the way that I did. I never knew that I would end up becoming so connected to this work. And I never knew anything about it. It was just, I was the invisible coach. And for the people who found me through a person and who had a story about how I changed their lives, they could book a call. And that was my journey in 2013. All right, so let's analyze this third and final section that I'm analyzing in this podcast episode. Now, in this section, the live video shifts again, but in a very specific direction. We move from engagement mechanics into what I'd call authority scaffolding through origin story construction. And it starts with a soft disclaimer that actually does a lot of work when she says essentially, quote, "Some of you may know me, some of you don't, bear with me," unquote. Now, on the surface, that sounds like casual framing, right? But structurally, it's a reset of audience positioning and hierarchy. She's reestablishing control over how she is perceived and reauthoring her identity for the newer viewers while reinforcing it for the returning ones. Then she introduces the idea that she is a, quote, magical, unquote, state. Today was aligned, manifested, extraordinary, right? This is important because it immediately elevates her baseline experience above normal life. Not just, I had a good day, but I had a day of continuous synchronicity and energetic alignment. That framing matters in coaching business growth ecosystems because what it's doing is it's positioning the speaker as someone with access to different experiential reality. So not necessarily better than you, but operating from a more attuned frequency of perception, basically. And that becomes the gateway into the origin story. Now, here's where the authority structure really becomes clear. She begins the classic founder narrative arc: struggle phase, collapse phase, awakening phase, emergence of purpose, eventual success trajectory. The origin story is not unknown, right? It's very common. It's taught by Russell Brunson. Everybody needs to have a strong origin story, right? But what's doing the real work here in her origin story is the positioning of competence. She explicitly describes herself as the invisible coach, right? And it gets interesting here because she reframes the absence of marketing as a strategic purity signal. She says, it didn't have a marketing or advertising, only word of mouth, right? So now from a factual standpoint, this may be historically accurate, right? She could totally have just completely not had any experience. She learned everything just doing, right? And that's, she started early, so that's very possible. But from a narrative perspective, it functions as something more specific here. It removes the perception of engineered growth. So instead of, I built this through systems and strategies, anyone can do it, the implication becomes, I built this through undeniable transformational ability. That distinction is subtle, but very, very powerful because it shifts perceived authority away from marketing skill and towards intrinsic value of the person's work. And then we get the key emotional anchor of the story here, which is the collapse. Sleeping in a Honda Civic, financial instability, relationship breakdown. Now, this is a familiar arc in coaching storytelling, but here it functions as contrast engineering. The lower the starting point, the more dramatic the perceived rise, right? And then she introduces the turning point, which she calls the God zone. Now, from a structural perspective, this is where the narrative becomes very mythic because the God zone is not just a coping mechanism or a mindset shift that she teaches, right? This is framed as a discovered state of reality, something almost cosmological in nature, yeah? This is important because it elevates her transformation story from I changed my mind to I accessed a fundamentally different operating system of life. And once that framing is established, everything that follows becomes retroactively validated. Her coaching becomes not just helpful, but derived from lived access to a higher experiential framework. And then she begins mentoring people informally during this phase. And this is where the halo of competence starts forming, the guru halo, right? She describes helping people find silver linings in extreme difficulty and then makes a very specific claim about her qualification. She says, quote, I can do this in a Honda Civic. I can help anyone. Now, this is a very powerful rhetorical move because it converts her previous adversity into her credentials. She's distancing herself from any formal training or systems or marketing expertise here, right? She's saying that her lived experience is proof of her teaching authority. And then we arrive at a very subtle but important philosophical justification for monetization. She introduces the idea that people need to earn or deserve transformation. So payment is reframed from being a transaction barrier into a psychological readiness mechanism. Now, this is doing two things simultaneously: justifying charging for transformational work and reframing resistance to payment as emotional unreadiness rather than price objection. That's a sophisticated reframing that high-level coaches often do because it protects the integrity of the offer while also elevating its perceived seriousness. It's also a vetting thing that people can do to weed out people who maybe just think that they can just buy the solution, right? And then she resolves the story arc here by stabilizing her identity. She didn't plan this. She didn't engineer it. She didn't expect it. She simply followed what felt like her purpose in life. So what we end up here is not just an origin story, but a carefully structured authority loop. Collapse creates relatability. Transformation creates mystique. God zone creates elevation. Early coaching creates credibility. And lack of marketing creates purity. Together, these elements form what I describe as a halo narrative, where the speaker's legitimacy is not anchored in external validation, but an internal experience framed as extraordinary and self-evidently effective. And once that halo is in place, everything else in this live video, including the offers, urgency, and the community framing, it all lands with significantly less resistance, right? It has addressed a lot of objections in these people's minds. It has kind of moved them from one belief to another, justified why doing this action will help not only them, but other people, okay? It's justifying the action because at that point, the audience is not just listening to a business coach, right? They're listening to someone who has already been narratively positioned as having crossed into a different category of experience altogether. All right, so in summary, when we zoom out, we can see that we're not just looking at a random Facebook Live video here, right? She's not just jumping on and talking to her audience to tell them about the masterclass. This is a layered attention system. It's expertly structured to attract attention, retain it, and reward it within a community. So here are just some of the common cult marketing skills that I observed in just these 3 clips. We had hierarchical audience segmentation, identity construction, in-group language, transformation promises, movement-based messaging, us versus them framing, emotional activation, community belonging, narrative storytelling, guru halo construction, engagement gamification, philosophical framing, and sales funnel positioning. Because after the 3rd clip, she then starts to talk about her offer in more detail. And this is all inside a single continuous experience. And whether you agree with this style or not, the underlying mechanics are worth understanding. Many coaches use this for their business growth, and it is not uncommon. It is taught in different books and in all the marketing stuff that I've taught, listened to over the years, courses, books. You can learn this stuff. But to see it in the real example and to understand why sometimes we get so mesmerized and we go down these YouTube vortexes, this is why it was designed that way. Because this is what modern coaching marketing often looks like when it reaches a high level of refinement. It's not isolated sales messages, but full narrative ecosystems. Now, guys, this is why I am so obsessed with cult marketing tactics and why I love it, because it's very, very effective. And if you are running an online business, it is worth learning these skills, especially if you're going to be showing up on lives. You need to learn how to attract attention, how to retain it, and how to get people in a community or excited about your offer. It's not scammy or wrong to do this, okay? It is absolutely using the heuristics that we understand about psychology in a way that helps people to feel good. And that is what Melanie Ann Layer does more than anything. So first, before I tell you my opinion about Melanie Ann Layer, why I think she's not a scammer, if you'd like to see the complete transcript analysis for yourself, I've put together a free downloadable breakdown that walks through the specific cult marketing techniques, messaging patterns, and audience building strategies that I observed throughout the live video. You can grab your free copy using a link in the show notes. As a bonus, you'll also be invited into Hexotica's Inner Sanctum, my primary newsletter, where I share marketing psychology, audience building insights, business bottlenecks, unconventional growth strategies, and the occasional spicy opinion that probably should have stayed in my drafts folder. So you'll also receive future podcast episodes, analysis breakdowns, and other resources designed to help creative and unconventional business owners build stronger, smarter businesses. Simply enter your details in the form below, and I will send the analysis straight to your inbox. So we've come to the end of the podcast where I'm going to share my unfiltered opinion about Melanie Ann Layer. And I'm in a little bit of a rush because right around 1:11, I'm not joking, I got a message from a friend inviting me to speak tonight, and I'm going to go and speak about cult marketing, I decided. So I'm in a little bit of a rush now, but I just swear to God that came in at 111. It was weird. Now, the reason why I know that Melanie Ann Layer is not a scammer or, MLM, whatever that a lot of people on Reddit will say is because every single time I see a marketer become really, really big, like Brooke Castillo or Melanie Ann Layer, anyone really, especially if they're a woman, there are so many people that think that they are scammers or they're not real or who buy their expensive programs and then fail to do the work and do it properly and then will say that the guru was the problem, right? They will take on this air of victimhood and say that this $100 million guru is not teaching them what they expected or why don't they have $100 million yet, right? Every single time. So Reddit is the worst place to look for reviews because as someone who was a freelance social media manager for 9 years, let me tell you, half the people out there don't have any idea how marketing works. And if they get advertised to, or they just have this chip on their shoulder about ads, about how marketing works, about business work, and they will discredit anything that people are selling. I literally had people say on my clients' ads, why are you charging money for this? If you cared about people, you should be giving it away for free. Like, as if you walk into a pizza shop and ask for a pizza for free, right? So many people don't understand how marketing works or business, and they've just got this natural negativity, right? Now, for the people that bought the program and then said that it wasn't what they expected, I know that that's also bullshit too, because in the time that I discovered Melanie Ann Layer, I found her language just wasn't quite resonating with me personally, right? But I did listen to one of her students' interviews with her. And when I heard her origin story, it literally it made me almost cry. It's a really good origin story. But I was more interested in the woman who was interviewing Melanie Ann Layer because she was sweary. She'd been a social media manager for many years. And so I started listening to her podcast, and I've listened to it like the last 2.5 years or 2 years or so. And it's fantastic. And she talks about energetics, and she is absolutely killing it, making really great money as a coach. And she went into Melanie Ann Layer's master program, paying nearly, I think at the time it was like $15,000 or $20,000 a month, right? And she did that for a year. And she became very, very successful because she did the work, right? And she believed in herself and she believed in her ability to do it. She did all the work. She did everything. So obviously, Melanie Ann Layer is teaching the real deal in her higher level programs. Now, the program must have been so good because after taking a year off, this student then went back and is now in that mastermind program again. So you cannot tell me that someone who is teaching these amazing energetics and marketing, all the things that she might be not showing on the front end, is not helping her students get results. Obviously, if it can get some people results, then it can get you results. It just means that you've got to put in the work, right? And that's so true for most coaches and mentors online. Like we resonate with different voices. One person's cup of tea is not going to be another person's cup of tea. And the work that we do to make their teaching happen is always, always going to come down to us. Ultimately, you can never buy a program or a book or hire a mentor and expect the solution to land in your lap. It doesn't work like that. You always have to have the mindset and the belief in yourself and the self-trust in order to make it happen. So that's my unfiltered opinion. I think I was very suspicious as well of Melanie Ann Layer when I first came across her stuff and saw her amazing success. But after looking into her the last however long, and hearing my friend who snaps up all of Melanie Ann Layer's programs and loves them, I know for sure that she's the real deal. And it's just about the language that she's using, right? All right. Now, talking about that language, in next week's podcast, I am going to be sharing my discovery of human design because I was a bit late to the game. And I only really finally got over my resistance to human design recently. And I spent all of last weekend studying my human design, which is Manifesting Generator 3-5. And I have decided to run an experiment, which is what we're meant to do, using everything that I learned from my human design chart into my marketing. So I'm going to be talking about that in detail next week. So if you don't know what human design is, pay attention to next week, listen in. It might be very helpful for you. If you think it's all bullshit, then maybe this is not the podcast for you, because I am a believer in magic. And I'll explain why I believe in that kind of magic again next week as well. So anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you have found this helpful. If you did, don't forget to leave a Hexia in the YouTube comments or on any of Hexotica's social media channels. Until next week, have a great week. Take care. Bye.